we stumbled on this process problem with getting content out of clients. Like, it was a problem with almost every website we had. It became a huge pain for our business. So we kind of, there was a few problems, and then we sort of started talking to other website designers in the local area, and they all focused on this problem as well. That everyone was just sort of feeding it to us. Like, they just couldn't stand getting content from clients, all these projects being held up. And just the language they used to describe how frustrated they were made us go, yeah, this is it. We have to build this.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the WP Elevation podcast. My name is Kath Hughes and I'm a coach here at WP Elevation. I also run a WordPress design and development business based in Sydney, Australia. So I'm really excited to announce that our feature guest this week is James Rose, and he's an Aussie-based developer and web enthusiast and the co-founder of a bouncing baby software tool called Content Snare, which is aimed at solving the problem of extracting website content from our clients. In this episode, I'm drilling James on the launch process behind their new product, along with the business and community he's built to support it. Stay with us.
This is the WP Elevation Podcast, helping WordPress consultants elevate.
Just before we get into this episode of the WP Elevation Podcast, we'd like to take a moment to thank our sponsor, GoDaddy Pro, who help us make this all possible. But instead of just giving you a spiel about how great GoDaddy Pro is, we thought it would be more interesting to introduce you to a GoDaddy Pro customer, a WordPress consultant just like you, and see what kind of work they're doing with their clients and the impact they're having on their community.
Melissa Gessinger of One Day Labs uses her talents to build websites in one day for her clients. With GoDaddy Pro Tools, she's able to achieve an entire website in one day for nonprofits that are looking to impact their community through her One Day Labs Day of Giving.
We have found that a great way to give back to the community is to have these events once a year where we are able to build a website for a nonprofit in our community for free in a day.
That's awesome. And then how did the Raise Collective website, how did that help their nonprofit? How did it help make an impact?
We built a site for the Raises Collective, which is a Sonoma County nonprofit that does a lot of giving back to the community, like the Hispanic community, people of color, through art installations and programs and that kind of thing. So having a good website built by a professional just raises an organization's credibility. And so being able to go through the process with us, we in about an 8 to 10 hour period of time, they had a new logo. Were able to have a brand new website with both English and Spanish translation.
Where can people find you to learn more about your business?
They can go to onedaylabs.com.
For more information about GoDaddy Pro, visit godaddy.com/pro for tools to support your business.
Okay, now let's get back to the show and see if we can help you take your WordPress consulting business to the next level.
Hi, I'm Kath Hughes from WP Elevation, and I'm thrilled today to be interviewing James Rose, who's recently launched a very cool software service called Content Snare. Now, James has been on the tracks making SaaS apps for his other businesses, along with his business partner Mark, over at Actura since 2010. But today I wanted to get the lowdown on what it means to launch one of your own and how to nurture the audience that you want to buy it. James, welcome to the show.
Hey, how's it going, Kath?
I'm really well. Now, you've just got back from a snow trip, haven't you?
Yeah, booked last minute because I was in need of a break. Let's put it that way.
Sounds fair enough. And the only way to get one of those these days is to leave the country.
Yep, pretty much.
Awesome. So welcome to our show. And for those of you who don't know, can you tell us a little bit about who you are, kind of what your background is, and how you found yourself talking to a bunch of us WordPress folk about software?
Yeah, well, I mean, we started in software a long time ago. Like, me and my business partner were engineers at the time, and we were using this software in the SEO space. We're trying to sort of start a side business with making websites, and putting ads on them. You know, the AdSense Gold Rush days.
Ooh, yeah.
And we decided the software we were using was rubbish, and we could do a better job of it. So we built our own software. Our first product was in 2010. And then somehow we ended up transitioning into building websites for clients, for local businesses, always on WordPress because that's what we knew from day one. And we always had our hearts set on building software again at some point. We love solving problems. We're both coders. I'm not much anymore because I spent too much time marketing to know how to code anymore.
Sure.
But so then we stumbled on this process problem with getting content out of clients. Like, it was a problem with almost every website we had. It became a huge pain for our business. So we kind of there was a few problems, and then we sort of started talking to other website designers in the local area, and they all focused on this problem as well. That everyone was just sort of feeding it to us. They just couldn't stand getting content from clients, all these projects being held up, and just the language they used to describe how frustrated they were made us go, yeah, this is it. This is we have to build this.
It's definitely a thing, man. And I mean, yeah, I think I remember having a conversation with Troy's business partner about this very thing, like about 3.5 years ago. It was just the same thing. Like, is there a tool? Is there something that you can use? And there wasn't, and the time and energy and conversation required to actually start building that thing meant that that conversation kind of didn't go much further. But now there's guys like you who are coming up with these cool things. So just before I crack on to the rest of my questions, I just wanted to let our audience know that you can pick up the key points from this episode, and we'll put together them in the show notes. So you can check out our podcast page and you'll get any links mentioned today, and you'll learn where you can find James. So there's no need to take any notes today. Just keep on listening. So Content Snare, it's a cool name. What's your tagline? I know that you were running a little bit of a competition or something for this over on your Facebook group, but what's the tagline sort of sitting at the moment?
I think the winning was get web content from your clients without the hassle, or just get content from your clients without the hassle. I liked that. The extract had a bit of a negative connotation to it, apparently, some people.
Kind of like...
Yeah, well, that's what it's like, right?
Oh, no, I'm not saying it's not how it is. I'm just saying I get the negative. So...
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And so before we get too carried away... your core business, like, you guys make software as a service, so SaaS apps for other customers or an API integration to work into their existing WordPress sites or their existing websites. And you've been doing that for other people, right? That's kind of what Acturia does. Cool.
I mean, it's changed. We were the typical kind of business that tries to do everything, right? At one point we were doing SEO and Facebook ads and blah, 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 and websites and this and that and every other thing. But now we've definitely sort of started winding down the website side of things and more into the custom development. Like that side of our business is where it's at now. Like, we build SaaS products or internal business tools. Doesn't have to be SaaS. Custom project management systems that are only used within one business. There's no public sign up and payments and stuff. It's just an internal business tool.
Yeah.
That's our main thing.
That's your main thing, yeah. And are you still getting the odd kind of WordPress customer trying to get in on that, or is that something you keep ticking along just in case?
We're in a funny spot there. We could easily stop that side of the business now, but I feel you've probably seen the way we're trying to build this whole business is through education-based marketing.
Yep.
And the only way I can do that is to be on top of what's happening and what's changing in the WordPress space, which to me means building websites for clients, even though it takes so much of my time that I think would be better spent on Content Snare. So I'm in this decision phase at the moment where I'm just trying to work out what we actually do there.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a very clever thing. Firstly, your education-based marketing, which is, where there's so much information out there about everything and so many pathways that you can take. Being the authority on the good stuff and being generous and being great and helping people move forward for free is where you start to build your own audience. And I think that's a very relevant thing no matter what your business does. The internet, there's so much on there. Like, where do you look? Everything you open has a different, this is the best way to do this ever kind of approach, and like what makes yours different. And I think actually giving people things that they can do right away for free, or showing people the way, or paving a way to help your clients help themselves, that doesn't cost you much more than your normal marketing time budget, if you like, but is probably more engaging. Is definitely the way to go. And I mean, obviously at WP Elevation we do a lot of that. Like, we produce so much and we're putting so much content out there because that's how we nurture our community. We build our community through being awesome at what we do. And it sounds like you guys have sort of started doing the same. So having your finger on the pulse on the whole who is making website, let's talk to them, is not a bad thing. And so I guess when you're talking then about, so let's talk about your product for a little while, just a little. So Content Snare, you've been building like a bit of an audience for this for a while, right? The people that you talk to, and you've been sort of talking to them and saying, hey, we're doing this thing. Do you want a little bit of in? You'd want to see what it looks like. How's the marketing side of things helped you progress the launch process for the product?
Well, over the years, I mean, because I've been in the whole small business, online business game for long enough to go to enough events and hear enough people speak and read enough that I've noticed a pretty big trend in that having an audience basically gives you the ability to do, not like I was going to say do anything, but I mean like make a business, because I've seen so many instances where they weren't businesses. They just had an audience, maybe they were just Instagramming some stuff, and eventually people started liking it and they got an audience, and then they were like, oh, now how do we make money out of this? But all they have to do, they've got the audience. So they just ask the audience what they want, that they can charge for, and they have a business like it. So it's I've seen this enough times now where I've gone, maybe I should have an audience.
It's a nice idea in that.
Yeah, like it's a lot of work though, and I think that's why most people don't do it, and that's why I never did it. So this time I kind of just went, you know what, let's give it a go. So the whole concept was really the Facebook group and a blog with good content. So I see a big trend these days to blog just for the sake of it, or just create content for the sake of it, whether it's for, I don't know, Google traffic or something. But it actually kind of annoys me, the quantity over quality thing.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah,
and I just see it so many business blogs, you go there and they're just these like small little tidbits because someone told them they have to blog and
keep it fresh.
Yeah,
something changing on your site every day.
Exactly, and it's just crazy. So that whole thing with us has been try and find out what people really want to know and write really good stuff about that. Even if it's only once a month. And then spend a lot of time getting that out there rather than just spraying all this content out, actually spending some time getting the content in front of people. Yeah.
And the stuff, I mean, so I heard of you. Let me tell you the past way that I heard of you. So someone in our WP Elevation community Facebook group says, oh, that's right. So I posted a blog saying that I pasted something on Facebook saying that I'm doing a prototyping webinar for another business that we do a joint venture with. So I'm doing a prototyping webinar on it, and prototyping content. Oh, that's right. Collecting content for small business websites. Sorry, get it back on track. It was collecting content, and someone came in and said, hey, Kath, have you checked out Content Snare? Are you going to be talking about that? I'm like, oh, I've heard of them. Sorry to whoever that was that I may have given you a little fib there. I hadn't heard of you, but I went away and I Googled you straight away. And I was like, oh, this is rad, this is cool. And it wasn't even open yet. And then I kind of followed the breadcrumbs to your Facebook group and started getting a little bit involved with that because I wanted to do a bit of research before I before I invited you to come onto the podcast. And so my own pathway was basically along the way of my sleuthing, I actually got involved accidentally, and now I believe in your thing, and I really want your thing to come out. So.
Oh, good. That's funny, actually, because there's just the amount of different stories of how people found us, and like it's kind of cool to actually see all that work pay off, like just trying to build this audience and trying these different experiments like competitions to share things and whatever, and it's actually working. It's like, wow,
all that marketing work you've been indulging in for the last 6 years finally works, and it's making sense. That's pretty cool though, like the idea of nurturing the community and giving them a place, I guess, to be a community, not just one person here and one person here. It's like pulling them together. And your group is fairly it's got people from all over the place. It's not just WordPress focused. It's like there's people who make web or do digital stuff all over the place. And not just in Australia now, I notice there's a bunch of people popping up and being invited from different places all over, which is kind of cool because obviously Content Snare is not supposed to be Australia mutually exclusive, mutually only available to Australia. Yep. So can I ask another question? And this one's a little bit, I didn't prep you for this one.
Hit me.
Yeah. Who have you followed? Like, it doesn't have to be a person or a book or whatever, but like in the apart from just like waking up one night and going, James, you need to build an audience. They've got an audience. I should get one of those. And then make something, sell it to them. Like, has there been anyone or any particular movement or anything that you've seen that has just clicked all this into place for you, so that when you're building contents now, you've already you're settled on, or you're confident on one part of this marketing side of things?
Yeah, there's definitely no one thing. It's just been a lot of different things. I try to get to as many live events as I can. Cool. And that's why it sucks to miss WordCamp. That's always been one of my favorite things. And that's not just from a place of going and listening to the speakers. In fact, most of the time, I don't know, I barely listen to the speakers. Sorry.
Find you at the after party.
Basically, I've always said the best connections are made at the bar. So that has definitely been a strategy of mine in the past, to just get on it.
Elevation does not condone the use of alcohol to build your business. Disclaimer end.
No, I think it's just being around those people, right?
Yeah.
And because at home, we hang out with our friends and have our normal human conversations, but they don't really sort of get the whole entrepreneur small business thing. But there, you're in a group where everyone's on the same page, same struggles, all that sort of stuff. And I think that's where I've learned a lot of just by talking to people there. Sure, I get stuff out of the speakers as well. The people I would say I follow, I've always struggled with this because the whole hero worship thing, where people get this idea in their mind that one person is going to solve all their problems. No. It's always kind of annoyed me. To put it lightly.
I'm a bit the same, yeah.
Yeah, but there have been a few people I think that are not, they're great. They don't put out the bull crap. Swearing.
Beep. We'll work on that.
So I think the two best people I've followed are James Schramko and Dan Norris, both Aussies.
Yeah.
Those guys have solid communities and put out solid info and are just really good at what they do.
Good at what they do. Gosh, I met James. James. I met Dan Norris in the coffee line at WordCamp Sydney nearly 3 years ago, 2.5 years ago, and had no idea who he was. Just chatted. I was like, oh yeah, I have a WordPress maintenance service. I'm like, oh, cool. And he's like, this is my first WordCamp and first time talking. I'm like, oh, cool, good luck, mate. And I sat in on his talk, and it was like, boom, this guy just exploded with all this awesomeness. And I was sold straight away, and not just on his product and his transparency about his product, which is beautiful, that he's one of the few people who have done that really well without making it all about them. It's been so much about the process and the flaws in the process, and then he put it, and then he just kind of and that was, you know, walked off and now he's making beer. But I was I was so impressed by him for that moment of like, it was humbleness, and then bang, I've got this thing and I'm showing you how to do it, and this is all the problems that we had, and this is all the things that broke, and this is why we stopped with our first business model and started with our second business model, and here's our transparency about our numbers. And one of the very first people I've ever seen who's been transparent about their figures in business. And so I've kind of followed him in the background since that day, because not because he was heroing himself, but because it was something I really resonated with. I was really interested in the content without it having to be shoved in my face. And I think that that's a very nice way to insert yourself in a community and build it without actually being oaf and you know, putting it in people's faces so much.
I agree. Yeah, I think he's done a really good job of that. Like, you hit the nail on the head with the word humble. I think, you know, it's a lot of the other big marketers might have great information, but it's just the way it's presented, and the, you know, like, it's the be all end all of everything, and this will fix all your problems, is what usually annoys me. And you don't tend to get that with those guys. I think another couple of people I've followed too are like Chris Ducker's events. I've been to a bunch of those, and like, I really love the community there. And gotta be Tim Ferriss as well. Like, just listening to his podcast and stuff. But yeah, that's it for me anyway.
Look, you know, you don't need them all, right? You just need a few that you resonate with, that give you solid advice that you can actually do something with.
WP Elevation as well.
Oh, here you go. Here's the paycheck. There you go. I
have actually followed WP Elevation for quite a bit. That's
that's nice.
Not really a single person though, really, is it? It's a bunch of you guys.
There's a bunch of us. Yeah, Troy's given us all a bit of power, which is kind of fun. But we were all just fan kids to begin with. Well, not fan kids, but just like, I think, people who wouldn't go away. We kept just keeping on and bugging him so long it gave us a job. So enough about that. So let's just, I'll try and bring this back on track, because I knew that we would get a little bit loose here, James, and that's totally fine by me, because it makes for great listening, hopefully. But you've been marketing it with the community groups. You've been telling all the people that you know that you're doing it, and they're supposedly or hopefully telling other people about it as well. And you've like, there's been some rustle. You've got some tech behind the launch, so you're trialing Thunderclap.
Oh yeah,
that one. Yeah. And what's the other one that you were telling me about?
Beta List was one. Product Hunt was one.
Product Hunt, yeah.
We haven't done the launch yet.
Have you done any? Have you got any leverage from those? Anything working?
I don't think much came in from Thunderclap, to be honest.
Yeah.
I'm kind of treating all this as experimentation, because I don't know what's going to work and what. Yeah, like I think there are some things that I'm pretty confident on, like Facebook ads. Like, we've got a lot of initial traction with that, and we're not running them at the moment stupidly. We need to get that sorted. You know, I'm going to try some Reddit ads and stuff like that. Like, there's all these like little bits and pieces that I want to try and just work out what's going to work. And I think the biggest standout so far has been that share competition. Like, I think it was Up Viral that we used, and just saying, get unlock 2 months of access or something for free if you share it with enough people. And that just went to town. Like, we doubled our email list in like 2 or 3 days.
Very cool.
From there, like, I wrote a whole blog post just about that, because I didn't realize how unreal that was going to be. Like, nothing has come close to that as far as effectiveness so far.
Sweet. And on that blog post, because you're doing this cool thing where you're actually a little bit like sharing the process along the way, which I love.
That's new, actually.
That's new. Well, you're doing it now because I told everyone that you're doing it.
Yeah. No, I actually recorded 3 videos back to back last week. You probably noticed we're in the same all of them, and then schedule them to go out. And I'm going to start going through the process to catch up to where we are now, and then onwards. Awesome.
Well, if you can drop me the links to that number of blog posts and things, that'd be great, because I'll pop it in the show notes here, so that people can go and have a read and see how things are going since this podcast was actually recorded. So on that, what have you learned? So you've learned some things that work, some things that don't work. You've spent some time and some energy on some things, and presumably they're going well. What's the biggest? Am I allowed to ask? Like, have you made a mistake that's cost anything?
No, never.
No. Have you made a mistake that you've spent more than an evening thinking about, or have you just kind of absorbed and kept moving?
Yeah, no, I am horrendous at dwelling on things. Sometimes, like, that's why I had to get away, right? Like, I last night, day back, the night after my trip was the first night I've had more than maybe 5 hours sleep in a month.
Wow, dude.
It's bad. Like, it's not like I haven't had the time. I've just been in bed, lying awake, like
thinking
obviously stressed, but not half the time. I'm not even thinking. It's just because I meditate quite a bit and I'm good at shutting that stuff down, but then I just don't sleep. I don't know if it's like a stress thing or I don't know. I have no idea. So yeah, no, there's been plenty of stuff that I dwell on, and that I worry about all the time. We've lost heaps of money in the past on external developers before we brought it all inside. That was a big learning experience. Do you want to know Content Snare specific stuff or?
Oh, look, I think in general, I mean, your experience is interesting because it's not just purely web design development, but it's actually a little bit bigger, and I guess there's more on the line when you're partnered with other people as well. So I just find the whole thing interesting, and like you've got this, you have to keep moving forward, but I'm sure that you've had some setbacks along the way, and for us to know that. I guess less about the setbacks, more about the moving forward bit. Well,
I mean, you've just got to keep going, right? Like, it all just builds up. Like, I can't say there's no one big monumental screw up with Content Snare. There's just been, it's just worrying. Is this next step going to work? Is this thing going to work? Like, is all this going to fall over? We've spent X dollars on building this thing now. Oh my God, that's like 10 times what I wanted to spend, and now we've got to make that back, and like that's a big ask, and it's all these small things that add up. But what can you do? You've just got to get the next lead, get the next sign up, or talk to someone to find out why they didn't sign up, or thank people for signing up to make them happy. Like, I got 2 emails today because I send personal videos to everyone that signs up on a paid plan. That is, I don't have time for the free ones. I literally never stop. That's just something I decided to do just to see how that would go. And I got 2 emails back today that were like, "Oh my God, this is like the coolest email I've ever received," and blah blah blah.
That's rad, man. I love that. Personalized emails for premium users, subscribers.
Yeah,
wow.
It's not that big a deal. It's just hit record and say hi and I love your website and whatever. Like, I like the services you've got and this is how you reach me. That's all it is. But it's just another thing I'm trying.
Keep trying, because it sounds like you're innovating and bringing the people side to the software, which is important, because at the end of the day, it's people using it. It's not, it's people, it's users. You and I had a little bit of a chat about Content Snare and the functionality of it, and I got have a little bit of an input. Hopefully, have a little bit of an input, but it's so great to feel like you've helped in a little way, in a human interfacing way. Like, we can make something that's beautiful and it can be great, but if you go to use it and it doesn't work, but then you've got no one you can talk to get it fixed, or you've got no one you can contact, because that seems to be the blanket thing with software and software as a service in particular, where the human side of it has to be there, I think, for these things to be successful, especially when you're getting started out. So what's on the roadmap? Like, what have we got coming up? What can I tell my audience here at WP Elevation about Content Snare that's going to excite them?
Yeah, I can't speak. Specifically, feature development. Are we talking here?
Oh, there may be a hint towards that.
Yeah, no. Obviously, gonna need some WordPress integration.
Ding, ding,
That's
ding, you get paid now.
yeah. That's definitely high on our list because I mean we need that in our own web design business. Because right now you sort of have to copy things out or do an export and copy things into WordPress. We're going to need some kind of integration there. It's going to be a big challenge, to be honest. It's going to be a huge challenge because of. So I'm just trying to pull up the actual feature list.
That's okay. Look, I'm not trying to put you on the spot. I just find it really like you guys. Obviously, you've started, but you can't. Like, I guess your promise to your founding members that you're adding things to it and building and listening and stuff. And I think it's a fun space to be in, whilst it's still a kind of a living, breathing thing. And it looks beautiful. Like, I'm so impressed with the interface personally. I find it's stunning and it's intuitive and it's gorgeous to use and looks up there with all of the best products that I'm using within my business personally at the moment. So I think you're onto something brilliant there. So yeah, I guess like some kind of WordPress integration there would be great. But that's us just being selfish and needy. But
no, but it makes sense though, because so like 25% of the web, is it, that it's on WordPress?
27 point something. Yeah.
Wow.
Extra 2%. Yeah, it goes up every year, every WordCamp.
And there's so many web designers use WordPress, so it would make sense. It's going to cut one of those features that, even if it saves someone 10 minutes per job, when you've got like, say 200 users building a website every month, that's a lot of time saved every month.
A lot of time saved. And
I view this stuff, right? Like it's collectively saving time and stress for all these people.
What are some of the other things that you've got up there? You've got highlighted at the top of the when we get time to list.
Yeah, well, no, this isn't the when we get time. There's some very high. We've got basically a giant list of stuff ordered from stuff that we need now to one day. One of the biggest ones at the moment is the repeater fields. That comes up a lot. Like if you had a team member, want to collect information from a team member or something, and you need their name and their bio and their Facebook.
Oh, and then you've got more team members.
Add another team member.
So cool, yeah.
I think that's a big feature we need, and that's like very high on our list. It might even be there by the time this comes out, this episode. Lots and lots of little usability things, like the ability to duplicate tabs, for example, which are like a page. One day I'd like to have sort of sitemap functionality built in, so you could have like a laid out sitemap that relates to the tabs or something like that.
We should talk off air about that one a little bit more. I have some ideas for you.
Very good.
It's very cool, man, and it's so nice to be able to sort of interface with someone whilst they're making this thing. And I guess you're approaching this with the end user in mind, and you're talking to the community, which makes it, you haven't just made it and say, here, have this, see what you can do with it. You've actually you've kind of crowdsourced all your need list, which is brilliant. So my last question before we wrap this up: you still making any websites, James?
Mm-hmm. We are. We've got a couple of builds from like before. I'm pretty sure one of them is from even before we started Content Snare. It's just been one of those ones that's dragged on, trying to get information out of the client. Funny that. Yeah, that one's nearly wrapped up. We've got a couple of other small ones in there. What our model was going towards before we left was the partnership type model. So we worked with marketers and designers as their back-end development team.
Yeah.
So those are still feeding us residual work, which is pretty much all the work we get now because we don't actively market websites at all. and it's sort of slowly fading off, and I'm okay with that because I think that's more time for me to spend on Content Snare.
Businesses mold and change and move, and I was on a podcast, a coaching call this morning with one of our members, Dan, and he said that one of the great things that he learned before he sort of added 2 new businesses to his model or to his existing business was that it's okay for businesses to change and evolve and try new things and occasionally fail at those things, as long as they're still something and still evolving and keep pushing and listening to their customers, and moving, where they need, like where their core strengths are. And I think that that's really important to know. Like you can start somewhere, but even when you start a career, you don't stay in the same role necessarily the whole time. And when you've got a business, that business isn't going to just do what it did the first day it launched. It's always going to be growing with its market and evolving to whatever technologies that are required in order to stay with that market. So, and
what the owner likes as well, like that sweet spot analysis or whatever they call it, with your passions and what you're good at and finding the,
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you can take Dan's example of like, okay, now I'm walking off and making beer and doing it really well, and like writing a business book about beer. Yep. I was super impressed. And I think that that's beautiful, and that is encouraging because it gives that scope, I think. And businesses are living, moving all the time, and as long as we communicate well with our customers, we always have their best interest at heart, and we always give them options when we change and when we evolve. We're always giving them options, and to make sure that they can still, that they're not lost along the way. Then I think that we're doing the right thing by them. Hey, it has been awesome, James. I know that we went a little bit off the script, but it was fun in the process. Thank you so much for spending some time on the WP Elevation podcast.
And thank you for the invite, Kath.
No worries. Awesome. So we're going to link to the blog post, but where can our audience get hold of you? What's the best place?
Well, obviously contentsnare.com. That's the big one. If they're a web designer and they'd like to join in the group, it's contentsnare.com/group. Otherwise, it's Content Snare on all the social medias. I think we even have a Pinterest, not that I've ever posted on it.
To go put something on the
I'll quickly do
just for us. No, dude, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much. I really look forward to seeing how the business evolves and how Content Snare kind of comes together over the next few months, because I know that last time I checked it was out there and awesome. Thank you again. I hope that you have enjoyed this episode of the podcast as much as I have. Please remember to visit wpelevation.com to review the notes of this episode and leave your comments and download the cheat sheet for the tools that we use here at WP Elevation. We may even be adding Content Snare to it. If you love what we're doing here, please subscribe to the podcast or give us a review in iTunes. It helps us spread the word, and you can do that by going to wpelevation.com/iTunes. Thanks for tuning in, and we look forward to your company in the next episode of the WP Elevation podcast. Until then, go elevate.